again, want to welcome everyone for joining for this church clerk training in Northern New England Conference. I have a very special guest speaker, Elder Jorge Ramirez. He's the Undersecretary of the North American Division, and I'll let him introduce himself perhaps a little bit later about what the Undersecretary of the NAD does, what the responsibilities entail. But I requested Elder Ramirez to come here because I heard him present something that I felt would be excellent for us all to hear. He presented for all the executive secretaries around the NAD about a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago. And I thought, man, we need to have that here for Northern New England Conference. And so that's what led to today. And I'm very thankful to have Elder Ramirez here. So he's going to be sharing that special training. And then also he's going to be talking about a possible opportunity for us to consider for our conference. And I'll let him share that as well a little bit later. But let's go ahead and get started with a prayer. So let's turn this time over to the Lord. Dear Father in heaven, it is a blessing that we can Sabbath with you. And we know as we Sabbath this spiritual high time, you also have on our minds as local church clerks, those who are newly baptized or newly joined the church, or those disengaged or missing members. Lord, we have quite a ministry that you have called us to. And I pray that you would bless all of us as local church clerks, and you would bless our speaker as well. May you be honored. And I pray that your work will become more effective in reaching souls as a result of this training today. So we're asking that the Holy Spirit would take charge today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Elder Ramirez, thank you for joining us today. The time is yours.
Thank you, Elder Brad, and good afternoon to all of you. It is my privilege to be a part of this Sabbath afternoon with each one of you, representing the different churches in the Northern New England Conference. So again, I bring you greetings from the North American Division, our administration, and we thank you in advance for responding to the invitation. And as Elder Brad suggested, we want to journey with you on a topic that has implications of mission implications. Again, this is not a business meeting. This is a meeting about the business of the church, about how we can continue to win the battle against the devil in terms of our soul winning and retention of souls that we sometimes work so hard to bring into the fold. And so, again, a big thank you to each one of you. Just a brief word of two about myself. As he suggested, I am the Undersecretary of the North American Division, which means that I am one of the officers of the division. Yet I am not an executive officer. There's only 3 executive officers: the president, the executive secretary, and the treasurer. And I happen to serve right alongside the executive secretary, Kiyoshin An. And part of my responsibilities has to do with assist the division in providing mentoring and training for our church leaders throughout our division, and that means union personnel, conference personnel. And one of the areas that secretariat at the division oversees is membership. And so the local church clerks fall under the secretariat responsibility of training, providing resources, and making sure that we do whatever we can to ensure that the ministry that the local church clerk, the conference clerk, and any secretariat department, whether at the conference office or union level, again, is well-resourced to do the ministry that we are called to do. So that's one of my responsibilities. Again, I oversee the E-Adventist team, Brian Ford, who is the E-Adventist director, and Rob. So I oversee their work. I'm also in charge of the North American Division calendar. which can be a challenge at times with so many departments and so many meetings going on all the time, not only in the division headquarters, but throughout the territory of the division. I also oversee a lot of in-house items within the North American division. Perhaps one other major area that I oversee is the travel requests for service that sometimes our employees, whether they're pastors, teachers, departmental directors, when they go overseas to do ministry, to do mission, one of the responsibilities under my office is to make sure that all the proper documentation and permissions have been granted from division to division, so that ministry can happen in other places of our world when our employees choose to go outside our division. Anyway, so just a few of the things, but the main thing again is secretariat work. Everything that has to do with the ministry of the local church clerk. And so I gladly accepted the invitation from Elder Brad to share with you a vision. As some of you may know, the North American division for the last, I'm going to say almost 2 years coming up, has been engaged in a, I'm going to call it a project, but it's more of an initiative on how we can retain members that we bring into the church and somehow we are not being successful. What can we do to provide retention of those newly baptized members that join our church? And alongside that, the nurture part, how can we engage our newly baptized members and nurture them so that they can become strong and solid with roots that are, and I'm speaking in metaphors here, but roots that go deep into the ground. And so whenever a wind comes, a storm comes, they will stand firm and not fall. So nurture and retention are the two topics that we're trying to address. And so this presentation has to do with those two items: nurturing of our newly baptized members and retention. And so as Elder Brad suggested, I'm hoping that this will be a spiritual gathering, that all of us will be blessed. Whether you choose to implement this program or pilot program, whatever we're going to call it, that's going to be up to you and your administration to look into it and see if this makes sense for your field. So I'm just answering the invitation, and I'm praying that God will bless us. So if any of you have any questions on that introduction, I will entertain if you have a question so far. If not, I'm going to share my screen and begin my presentation. But are there any questions as to what I just shared with you? All right. And by the way, I would welcome this presentation to be more of a dialogue than a monologue. And so as I'm going through my presentation, if any of you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or use your virtual hand, or just jump in and say, I have a question, and I will stop and be happy to entertain your question. And hopefully all of us can learn as we go along this journey. So thank you again, Elder Brad, for the invitation. And I do pray that, again, when I am done, that all of you will be able to see if any of this makes sense, and if you're open and willing to engage in a project of nurture and retention for the newly baptized members in your territory. So I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm hoping that technology will be kind to us. So let's see, share screen here. Let me do one more thing. And let's see. Are you able to see my screen? I'm hoping.
It looks like we're seeing half of it.
All right, let's.
Okay, yes, now it's perfect.
Okay, are you seeing the entire section there? Okay. Let me know if something is not looking right. Again, technology can be tricky at times. So if you're able to see the slide, then I think we are good to go. So what I am going to share with you is what I am calling the ministry of the local church clerk. And notice that I am inserting the words in nurture and retention, which many of you right away are going to realize, hey, wait a minute, when I was called to be a church clerk in my local church, there was never mention that my ministry would involve nurture and retention, and you are correct. Again, this is something that I am kind of recommending, suggesting, maybe a vision of mine, maybe a dream of mine is nowhere out there. Church manual or any church clerk policy or guideline or anything, because again, that has not been the intent. So let me share with you what I believe is what has been the main tasks of the local church clerk, and you will agree with me, and maybe not. So here we go. So record keeping has been one of the main tasks of the local church clerk. And when I say record keeping, and let me just give me a moment here, let me see if I can. Okay, there you go. And when I say record keeping, I am mainly suggesting. Let me go back here. So forgive me, I'm having trouble here with my advancing stuff. But so the main tasks of the local church clerk are twofold, basically. The record keeping aspect and the reporting task. So what do I mean by record keeping? Record keeping, and again, this is where you are going to hopefully agree with me. You have been involved so far in your task as a local church clerk in dealing with minutes, membership lists. You know, the church clerk is responsible to make sure that the local church has a hopefully an accurate membership list. Historical events in your church, you know, the church clerk is usually responsible to make sure that whatever historical event happens in your church, that you file it, that you keep a record of it for future generations. What do I mean by historical events? Sometimes churches go from mission groups to companies. They become organized as a company, and then eventually from company to a full church. And during those stages, there's usually a celebration, a special program, conference administrators, you know, come down, and there's a special program, a special event that takes place. And so that is a historical event in the church. When the church reaches 25 years of ministry, 50, sometimes 100 years of existence, and the church decides to do a major celebration to capture that historic moment. Those are special events that sometimes, you know, can be shared, published on the local newspaper. There could be a special bulletin made, whatever is done. Those are things that you want to record, you want to keep, you want to safeguard, again, for future generations. And so that is a historical event, just to give you a little more background. And of course, data, you know, everything that you are record keeping, you know, like, you know, total members, quarter by quarter, total members at the end of the year, etc. That's data that you are keeping, that you are recording. So this is one of the main tasks of the local church clerk, record keeping. Then the other one, as I suggested, the reporting aspect. What do I mean by reporting aspect? You report baptisms. Every time there's a baptism in your local church, you are the one who keeps record of that, and hopefully you are an e-Adventist, which makes life a lot more easier for you. Then you log in onto your e-Adventist account, and whether you do it that evenings, let's say the baptism took place on Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning. So that evening when you get back at home, you log into e-Adventist, to your account under the church that you are serving, and you enter the information on the newly baptized member. So you report baptisms. You also report baptisms to your executive committee or the church board. Whenever the church committee or church board meets, you give a report. Hopefully you give a report quarterly to the conference office through the conference clerk in terms of how many baptized members the church had during the given quarter. And then obviously the conference clerk has a responsibility of sending that report from all the churches and within Northern New England Conference to the Union and so forth. So you report baptisms, you report professions of faith in the same manner. You report membership transfers. Again, hopefully if you're doing it on e-Adventist, just a very easy way of doing this ministry of the church. So you are in charge of creating the process for the membership transfers coming into your churches or going out of your churches to other congregations. Again, you report membership growth, as I suggested a moment ago. We had so many members at the beginning of the quarter. Now, with all the activity during the quarter, now we report so many members for the local church, and you do the same thing annually. And so you report this membership growth again through those quarterly reports. And yes, again, that all comes down to data. So you're in charge of data. And guess what? In my humble opinion, what all this means when you do this record keeping, when you do this reporting task, in my view, you are in charge of main tasks of the local church, which I am calling specialized functions. So you are a very important piece of keeping the church organized. The local church clerk, if no one has ever said this to you, you have to understand you are a very important piece of the administration of your local church, not just because you're record keeping, you're reporting tasks, you are in charge of all this activity, which again, I see them as specialized functions. And so again, in summary, again, you're very important ministry because you deal with data, yes, but most of all, you deal with people, and you are dealing with people involved in mission of the church, either because of the mission of the church grows, new members join your church, and once they're in the church, now it is the mission of the church to make disciples of this newly baptized member. So yes, data, minutes, agendas, reports, whatever, but please remember, you are a very important and a key element of mission of people in your local church. And I hope you take this very serious, not just in the way you do your ministry, but in the fulfillment, in the satisfaction that you are a very key church leader in your local churches and in the conference, dealing with mission, dealing with people, and yes, data, which is the main things that you do. So having said all of this, there are two challenges that faces your church and pretty much every local church throughout the North American division. And I will consider them probably the biggest challenges. There's many challenges that our churches face, but I'm going to share with you the two challenges. One, the retention of new believers. We're not doing a good job in the retention of newly baptized members for whatever reason. The other one, sometimes when we lose a member, we're also not doing a good job in reclaiming lost members. And so this has created a major problem, major challenge, not only for a local church, but as a whole. It's a major challenge within the church in the North American division. And if you can see my slide, you see that in the last 10 years, from 2011 to 2020, the North American division lost approximately almost 40% of its members. Yeah, it's 36.7, round that up to 37%, round it up to the next highest number there, and it's almost 40% of the members that came into the North American division as a whole. For the last 10 years, we have lost almost 40%.
Elder
So
Ramirez.
Yes.
So does that include death as well?
No. This is only missing and removed.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not including deaths or transfers out. And there are transfers out from our division to another part of the world, another division. They're not as much, but yeah, it's not including any of that. It's basically members that are reported by local churches as missing or removed. That's what this number basically shows. So in short, what we are, and by the way, I have to say that some conferences, this number is much higher. There are some conferences who are losing, more than 40, almost 50%, and there may be one or two. I didn't look at that data, but I'm sure there's one conference out there who may be losing more than 50%, to maybe close to 60% of members for different reasons. And so it is a problem that our church as a whole, and our church in the local field, it is facing. And we can see this in the reports that go out from the local church clerk to the conference clerk onto the union, etc. And the data, again, it's there. So we are losing. If I can exaggerate just a little bit, there's the potential that we can be losing almost half of the newly baptized members in our local churches. And so that is a major challenge that, as I suggested at the beginning of my presentation, the North American division has been discussing, has been looking into it. And at our April Secretaries Council, where all the secretaries, executive secretaries of the conferences and of the unions will come together in April for our yearly meeting. This topic is going to be presented one more time as again, we're looking at ways to change this trend. So I'm sure you're wondering, where is NNEC in this matter? Where do you stand? And I just took the initiative to pull some data from the reports that you faithfully have been submitting year after year to the union through eAdventist. If you are an eAdventist, let me just emphasize that if you are a clerk from a church and in NNEC and you are an eAdventist, your report goes, once you go online on your eAdventist account and you report transfers, baptisms, professions of faith, whatever activity, it goes straight to the union, and then from the union goes straight to the division. Your conference clerk has nothing to do with reporting things for you. It's done automatically through the system. What your conference clerk does is assist, some of you who may not be on e-Adventist and collecting some of that information, entering it in on the e-Adventist platform for you, potentially. Then therefore the whole report ends up being on an e-Adventist platform up to the union and to the division. So again, very important that hopefully many of you, if not all of you, should consider the e-Adventist platform, because it just simplifies things tremendously. So I took the initiative to look at your statistics, and I want to show you briefly. Hopefully you can you see all the way from 2012 to 2022 on your screen?
No.
Actually, it's cutting off on the edges on the left side and the right side. We can see only 2012 to 2017.
Okay, so you are missing, let me see. Okay, is that?
Yes, it's much better. We can see all years now. Yes, everything.
I apologize. I wish you had someone would have mentioned something, because I don't see what you're seeing, and so okay. Let's see, now I can correct this. Okay, is that much better?
Yes, we can see everything. Thank you.
Okay, so I apologize, because then you were seeing a partial slide, portions of my slides, the previous ones. Hopefully you were able to catch everything.
Yes, we were able to catch like your titles of slides, and no worries. We understand.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Is 2020 the last year you have up there?
2022.
2022.
I can only see 2020.
All right. Well, I'm seeing from 2012 to 2022. Is
Yeah.
anyone else not able to see all 11 years he's got there?
I can, but I had to move my screen with people on it over.
Okay.
Where do you move it? How do you move it?
Just grab the top of the box and you can move it over like you do.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, thank you.
You got it?
Yes.
Praise God for that. So now we're good. So thank you again, Elder Brad, for your guidance and making sure that we're good here. So these are statistics for the Northern New England Conference from 2012 all the way through the end of last year. So they're the very latest statistics. And notice that these are the hold on. Let me. There you go. These are the add-ins. These are the gains. And for the purpose of this presentation, I'm only going to look at the blue numbers, which represents the baptisms. Okay. So again, as you look at your years there, you've had in 2012 104 baptisms for the whole year. And then you can see the different numbers for the other years. In 2020, that's a year you've had the highest baptisms in the last 10 years or so, with 109 baptisms. And then last year in 2022, you ended up the year with 82 baptisms, which represents the highest in a few years, in several years that you have had in terms of baptisms. So when you add all the blue, the numbers in blue, which represents baptisms, it will give you 890 baptisms since 2012 through the end of 2022. So keep that in mind, 890 baptisms. The numbers in black represents, the professions of faith, how many came into the conference from the different congregations at NNEC. And so anyway, so here's the view of the add-ins, the gains in terms of mainly the baptisms, because that's where I want to focus on. You can see here, how many transfers you had as well, and the adjustments that were made from time to time, etc. Now let's look at the other side of the token. These are the add-ins, the gains, the wins, if I may. Now we are looking at the drops, the losses. And again, for purpose of this presentation, I'm going to be looking at the blue. I'm sorry, I'm going to be looking at the, I guess is the green, and the darker one, which I'm colorblind, so forgive me, I think it's black. So the green and the black, the ones in the middle, which represents the missing and the removed. This means that these were the total people removed by the local churches on the years given there, because either they were missing members, no longer part of the church, or they were they were removed. So when you add those two components, and again, I didn't give you the numbers here, but it totals 309 members removed compared to the, remember the other number, 890 baptisms. Now we have 309 members that were removed because they were either missing or, again, for other reasons were removed. And that, when you do the math, the percentage, 309 of 890 represents 34.7, round that to the nearest highest number. That's 35% of missing members that were dropped from records as compared to the newly baptized members. So you had X number of baptisms, then you removed X number, and that gave you almost a 35% ratio of.
Elder Ramirez,
Yes.
just curious if you've looked at the numbers, if you were to add the professions of faith along with the baptisms.
Correct.
So let me ask, for the NAD numbers you gave, the 34.7%, did you calculate just the baptisms alone, or did you include also the professions of faith in the NAD numbers?
No, we are looking at only the baptisms.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And for the same reason, I'm only giving you the baptisms data here. Obviously, you can do a different math and include other numbers, and the ratios are going to show, the percentage is going to show a little bit. But here, for the purpose of this discussion, again, remember, I'm coming from a missional perspective. How many new members in terms of baptisms? That is kingdom growth. Baptisms is what we call it, kingdom growth. That means that people who had no idea who Jesus was, who the Seventh-day Adventist Church was, who God was, or whatever, they decided to join the church through baptism. They are newly baptized members, kingdom growth. We're not including transfers, because transfers means other members joining your church, other Seventh-day Adventists joining the church. And so we're looking at the kingdom growth, and we're also looking at the loss in terms of potentially members going out the back door.
So there's a
Elder
question.
Ramirez,
Yes, go ahead, Cindy.
I just wanted to know exactly what the transfer number means in and out of your church. How do you work that?
Yes, transfers means members that join your church by profession of faith, or they would transfer membership.
Okay, so it's just in your church or out also?
No, it's out as well. You have transfers in, and when you look at the report that you should be getting from your conference clerk once a quarter, once a year, it will give you all the details. How many transfers in, and it will also give you the breakdown: adults, young people, children, senior citizens. If we're filling in the information, providing their age and things like that, then the e-Adventist system will give you the breakdown of how many transfer in by different age category, how many transfer out by age category. And those are all good statistics which helps you see the activity, the flow of the activity in terms of the different age groups of people coming in and out of your church. So transfers in and transfers out of your church.
Elder Ramirez.
In this particular case, this report that I'm giving you, since it's showing conference, it shows transfers into the NNEC Northern New England Conference, how many transfers in, how many transfer out.
Thank you.
At the conference level.
Elder
Yes.
Ramirez, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Well, this is Wendy from Woodstock, and I'm just wondering if that 35% of members, is that over 11 years or is that just this year?
No,
The
that percentage that I gave you, it's over the period of years that you see on the screen.
Thank you.
2012 to 2022.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You are very welcome. So again, hopefully this gives you a quick picture of your territory, the Northern New England Conference, how many, and I'm going to go back just to, again, here are the add-ins, how many baptisms you had, and I share with you, it's 890 baptisms. That's counting all the blue numbers, the columns in blue. For the whole conference, 890 over that same period of years. And then I said you lost 309 members, which represents a 34.7% over that same period. So the question again, and if you look at other conferences, other churches, other territories, the trend is, as I suggested earlier, pretty much the same. It's interesting to see that it never dropped below 30. It's at 30, 34, 35, 40, 45. And as I suggested, there are some conferences at 50 or a little higher than 50%, which again is in my view, is a sad reality that we are dropping, we're losing a lot of members. We gain X number, but then we lose about the same. And so that's why our growth sometimes is very, very minimal. So the question is, how can we reverse this trend? And this is where it's bringing us to the where the rubber meets the road. How can we reverse this trend? And this is where I will jump in and dare to suggest, what if? And again, remember, it's a dream, it's a suggestion, it's a possibility. It's a what if. No one is suggesting right now that we're going to implement this across the division, across unions, across conferences. Right now, this is a talking point. What if, and here's the first part of the whole thing. What if the local church clerk became the catalyst to foster, nurture, and retention in the church? Again, a what if. Here's another what if. And before I do that, let me just say, by default, one of the driving forces of this what if is that the local church clerk, by default, you are the church leader closest to the church member for different reasons. As I suggested, as soon as someone gets baptized, you are in contact with that person. You should be in contact with that person because you want to get the new member information. And I'm hoping that initial contact, would not just be that one time, and then after that, you don't have any more contact with newly baptized members. I'm hoping you can carry that relationship, that friendship, because initially you want to know who they are, what their family is, membership information, where they live, contact information. So you can enter all of that information into your report. So you are that initial contact for that member. And then we'll talk more about the other things that should be happening beyond that initial contact. But again, you are the closest to that member right from the beginning. Another what if? What if we empower the office of the church clerk, again, to assist with the nurture and retention of church members? Basically, what I am suggesting is let's make this ministry, the ministry of the church clerk, a specialized ministry. A specialized ministry, not only in data, the data you already know, the data responsibilities, but let's make it a specialized ministry in terms of mission, nurture, retention. And some of you may be scratching your heads already, maybe wondering, what is he talking about? How in the world, I can be a part of that, or I can do that. Let's see if it makes sense. What do I mean by nurture and retention responsibilities? Let's review what those might be. And I think many of those are already happening. So, for starters, it starts with maintaining an accurate membership information. And that is one of your responsibilities as a church clerk. Maintaining an accurate membership information. It takes time, it takes effort, but it falls on you to have a complete membership information. You are already caring for the members, all of the members. And of course, that includes the newly baptized members. They become members. And so they become part of your membership information. You're already doing this. You're already in touch with the membership of the church. You're already the eyes, very, very special eyes on membership through this responsibility. So again, you perhaps you're already doing this, and I'm praying, I'm hoping that all of you are doing a great job in keeping accurate membership information. And I know it can be a challenge, and I'll be happy to answer questions and bring and give suggestions as to how to make this happen. Maybe at the end on our Q&A session, I can answer questions now if you want, but it can happen. You can maintain an accurate membership information. And part of our challenges sometimes is that we don't do that. Part of my background, I was a pastor for 22 years before joining administration at the local conference level. And so I know what I'm talking about. I have dealt with these issues. I worked with conference clerks, many conference clerks during my 22 years as a pastor. And I can see sometimes that the challenges and difficulties in maintaining and accurate membership information. But there are tools, there are ways. If you yourself say, I can't do it, I got too much on my plate, well, that's where having an assistant or an associate, can help. But ultimately, you as the clerk, you as the main leader, it's your responsibility to make sure that this takes place. So nurture and retention, in my view, begins with this piece right here, maintaining that accurate membership information and in whatever platform you choose. And there are many tools today, eAdventist being one of those, that helps you maintain an accurate membership information. When a new member gets married, guess what? Time to update your membership information. Now, instead of one person, there's two in one household. A family has babies. Time to update that membership information. People transfer out. time to update it. Transfers in, time to update it. Unfortunately, deaths occur. Well, someone passed away, time to update the membership information. You know, I was at a union not so long ago, representing the North American division, and I was hit hard. And again, when I go to a union executive committee, I'm there as a resource. I'm there to support. I'm there to answer questions, but I am not the officer or the administrator for that union. But since this was a membership issue, someone shared that in their union, they've had some very upset church members calling the union, that local union, complaining that how in the world that family was still receiving the local union paper or magazine for their parent. I don't know if it was a mom or a dad, when they had been dead for almost 3 years. And so what happens there is that the local church, never updated that record. Mrs. Jones passed away, and that local church clerk should have updated the membership information and removed Mrs. Jones, or signal in the record, passed away, so that that information would trickle up to the union, and the union, once they get it through e-Adventus, they delete addresses of members that are either no longer members of that specific conference, or they're passed away, or they're transferred out, whatever, and they stop sending the local union paper. But somehow this update was never done, and here we had a very upset family wondering, how are we doing business? Why do we do this? Why do we create pain in families for not updating membership records? So again, this is just an example of why it's important to do this. The other piece is monitor attendance of new believers, and I am suggesting here all the way from 1 to 3 years. Again, this is another piece that I believe is a piece of nurture and retention that could end up being a responsibility of the local church clerk. Again, monitor attendance of new believers for either 1, 2, or 3 years. What do I mean by this? Again, the members. And just to be very specific on this, let's say that you started this practice in 2023. Well, beginning January 1, because this is where we're going to test this program or this pilot program, whatever we're going to call it. Let's say that you are a church that you have decided to test this, to implement this. You have decided that you are going to do whatever you can to nurture and retain members. So you're implementing this what if in your local church. So one of your responsibilities, besides maintaining an accurate membership information, you as a clerk, whether it's you or one of your assistants, if you are able to have an assistant church clerk, you're going to monitor attendance of the new believers starting in 2023. So let's pick one church. I'm just going to heard a few churches during the introductions. Let's look at I'm going to pick on Mountain View Church. Let's say that you're one of the churches that you say, we're going to implement this. We're going to give this a try. So you as the church clerk, you start recording baptisms in 2023. So let's say that in January, your church had 3 baptisms. Well, guess what? You got 3 new believers that are part of this pilot program. And so starting during, the moment they join the church, you're going to monitor their attendance. You got 3 now. Let's say in February or March, Mountain View has another baptism. 1 person gets baptized. Well, you go from 3 to now 4 new believers that you're monitoring attendance. You follow my point. Throughout the year, you're going to create a list of the new believers for that year, because the goal is not one new believer is going to go through the back door this year by God's grace. This is part of the new nurture and retention responsibilities that I am suggesting in this what if ministry of the local church clerk. So it could be that in 2023, let's say that you baptize 20 members. Well, for 2023, you're going to monitor the attendance of 20 members, or 8 or 20 or 50, depending on how many you baptize. And you decide whether you do it for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. I personally would recommend at least 2 years, because you want those new members to really solidify the roots into your church. So monitor attendance, make sure that they're in church. So what happens if I am one of those baptized members in January there at Mountain View and I miss one Sabbath? Well, you again coordinate with whoever is responsible for visiting members, the visitation of new believers who are absent on Sabbath. So let me give you another same example. And again, it's very easy. It may appear to be complicated, but it's not, because it's monitoring the newly baptized members, whether it's 1, 5, or 20, whatever new members your church has baptized, beginning with that year that you're implementing this program. So let's say that
Elder
I am
Ramirez,
one of the,
we
Yes,
have a
sir.
question, I believe, from Diane.
yes, Diane, go ahead.
Hi, Pastor. So we're already taking weekly attendance, but are you suggesting that we actually write down the names of the new people and keep track of them specifically, or you're not just talking about general attendance?
I'm talking about new members in
Okay.
a given year where you're implementing a nurture and retention ministry, because everything has one purpose. The 3, the 5, the 20 that you're baptizing in that given year, your goal, by God's grace, you're not going to lose one of those and implement this thing. So yes, create a list of the newly baptized members in your church, monitor their attendance, and whenever I am missing on a Sabbath, you are going to be looking for the 5, the 1, the 3, the new baptized member. And if you see that I'm not there,
Okay.
then you coordinate with whoever is responsible for visitation, whether it's the pastor, the elders, and you pass the information to them. That's the only task that you are, at least that I'm envisioning for you to do. You pass the information. Brother Jorge did not show up to church this Sabbath. That's all you have to do. And I am praying that it's part of this nurture and retention responsibility. The church also has a good, if not great, visitation program, whether it's a pastor, the pastors, if it's a larger congregation, or the elders, where that name that you're going to give to the person in charge of visitation or responsible for visitation, they're going to implement. I should be getting a visit that week that I missed from either the pastor or one of the elders, because you as a church clerk passed my name to those in charge of visitation so that they could just visit me. We missed you at church. We were hoping that you're not sick or ill. Everything okay? We're here to pray with you. We missed you. We're so glad you're part of our church family. May we pray for you? Do you have any need? I may be okay. I may have just chosen to visit another church, or I may be sick, or I may have whatever. But your visit, believe it or not, is going to mean the world to me as a newly baptized member, because it's going to show that my church cares for me. And you can just imagine what that visit is going to do in the life of a newly baptized member. I'm sorry, I wanted to finish my thought. I heard someone, and I can't see anyone, so I do appreciate Pastor Brad, if you help me with any hands that go up virtually. So I heard someone talking. You have a question?
I don't think I heard anybody recently, but I think we're
Okay.
all good.
Okay, so this is the visitation piece. Again, under the ministry of nurture and retention of the local church clerk. Again, very simple. It takes a phone call, it takes text, it takes whatever to the person in charge of visitation. I did not see brother or sister so-and-so in church. And I hope it's beginning to make sense what those responsibilities under the local church clerk could potentially be. And again, it's all part of, for me, it's all part of what you already do or should be doing in terms of keeping an eye of the membership of your congregation. The next is the next piece that I'm suggesting. And again, some churches may choose to implement 1 and 2, hopefully 3. I think 3 is the minimum. But let's look at number 4 here. Maintain attendance record of new believers class. So what am I suggesting with this? I'm hoping and praying that as part of the new nurture and retention initiative for your church, you will start the pastor, the elders, because I do understand that sometimes there may be 2 or 3 churches for under one pastor. So the elders are going to have to step in and serve as pastors for the congregation while the pastor is absent. So I'm going to assume that a church who says, you know what, we're going to experiment with this nurture and retention program. We're going to, as part of our program, we're going to start a new believers class. I think most of you, if not all of us, understand what a new believers class is. It's another Sabbath school, but it's a Sabbath school only for the recently baptized members. And so I'm hoping that if I get baptized into your church, that you're going to, whether it's the pastor, hopefully the head elder or one of the elders, you're going to befriend me and invite me to be a part of this new believers class. Why? Because in the new believers class, you're going to teach me more about the Adventist church. See, the new believers class should not have the Sabbath school quarterly, should not, must not, because that's an opportunity for the church to strengthen the beliefs of the newly baptized members for that year. 1 year, I would say 1 year, do it for 1 year. Then after 1 year, put me in a regular Sabbath school group because I should be stronger, because in a new believers class, again, you should be teaching me more about the beliefs and the doctrines of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Perfect opportunity for the teacher to give me history of the Adventist Church, things that we normally don't present in church on Sabbath. Another third topic that a believers class could show is how are we organized? The local church, the union, the conference, the union, the NAD, the general conference. Spend a quarter going over church organization, and so that I can learn, that I can fall in love more and more with my church, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see that the topics are very important and should only be for new believers class, because you want me to become more, not only familiarized, but more cemented in my church as I'm now a new member of your church. And this is why this applies for baptized members only. I would not apply this to transfers, because a transfer is another Seventh-day Adventist that joins your church. Yes, you monitor their attendance if you want, but again, for this pilot program, we want to focus on baptized members, even professions of faith. Those are members who already believe, who have been members of another Seventh-day Adventist church in many cases, who, for whatever reasons, we cannot transfer the membership because they're from overseas or whatever. We hope that those members are already well rooted into the faith. And so I would not put them in this mix. And again, I already spoke about transfers as well. I would focus on the babies, the baptized, the kingdom growth that Jesus said, go out there and make disciples, teach them, baptize them, bring them into the church. Those are the ones that I'm focusing in this presentation, and those are the ones that we want to nurture and retain. So new believers class, Go
Elder
ahead.
Ramirez? Yeah, I would think we would definitely want to include those who join by profession of faith from another faith. Not like you said, those that had complications coming from Jamaica or some other division, but those who are brand new Seventh-day Adventists. So what I'm hearing you share is this really applies for brand new Seventh-day Adventist Christians. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, and thank you. You bring up a good point. Yes, it could be I think you suggested a profession of faith from another church, another faith, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
So yes, those new Seventh-day Adventists that are starting, and yes, and by the way, if a conference chooses, or even a church, local church chooses to implement such nurture and retention program, you can adapt, you can do whatever you want, you can do it in many aspects, you can add or delete. This is not you must do it this way. So you are very right. You can adapt certain things to benefit and strengthen your church. So thank you. Great observation. So this is the believers class, the new believers class. And I think you fully understand the purpose of it and why newly baptized members should be a part of that for at least 1 year before cutting them loose into the regular Sabbath school classes. And then another aspect of this nurture and retention responsibility is maintain record of new believers involved in ministry within the local church. And I believe this is the final piece of what the local church could do through the conference to the church clerk, maintain record of the new believers, again, the same group of people that we're discussing or talking about, becoming involved in ministry within the local church. So the clerk is creating a record. It's not that I'm saying that it's going to be your responsibility so that every new baptized member gets involved in ministry. No, you create a record. This should be part of what the pastor's vision is, the elder's vision. This is part of the nurture and retention initiative for your local church. And you're going to do A, B, C, D, and E to make sure that the new believers are well grounded in the church. They're active in the church and they don't leave the church. And so this is another piece, making sure that through whatever program, through the pastor or the elders of the or Sabbath school, whatever department, making sure that new believers get involved in a ministry of the local church. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. I am here because when I got baptized at 16 years of age, a teenager, I am here because the pastor of my church made sure, and they didn't have a very robust nurture and retention program like I am suggesting here, but I'm sure they had pieces here and there. And one of those pieces was he made sure that newly baptized members became involved in ministry. It was probably a week after I got baptized that he visited me, and he invited me to join the choir of the church. Join the choir. I don't sing at all. And yet he says, we're starting a choir, and we would like for you and your brother, because I had a little brother at 14 years of age, and my sister, the three of you joined the choir. Well, I mean, we're excited, we're new in the church. What is this choir? Well, we're going to sing songs, learn. And then for me, it was more of a social moment, because I realized that when I went to they were not auditions, but, it was a meeting of those that were invited to be a part of the choir. And so I'm looking around and I see older people, I see younger people, and I saw people my age that were also invited. And I started looking and oh, wow, there's a girl that, I think I like the girl. Anyway, there were other reasons why, I stayed there, but believe it or not, all those reasons are good and valid. That community of choir members drew me and kept me into the church. I started practicing, on Sabbath afternoons with them. And then we started singing in the church. Soon the pastor says, you know what, would you be willing to serve as one of our youth directors? And I'm thinking, what does a youth director do? I have no idea. But here again, someone invited me to serve. I did it all. From 16 till the time I was elected an elder of my church, which I was about 18 years old. In 2 years, I went from choir, I became, Sabbath school clerk or secretary. I took reports for Sabbath school. I gave reports on Sabbath morning. This is the old style of Sabbath school back in the day. I became a Sabbath school teacher. I became a deacon, and eventually I became an elder at 18 years of age. And here I am, never left the church. I fell in love with my church because I became active, involved. People care for me. People show that they care, not just from the pulpit, but one-on-one. And so this is where I'm coming from when I'm suggesting not only maintaining an accurate membership record, monitoring attendance of new believers, coordinating the visitation of the new believers whenever they're absent from Sabbath, maintaining an attendance record of the new believers class, and making sure that new believers become involved in ministry. Again, you could do all of this, or you can choose to do 3 of those. You are going to be much, much better if you have a meaningful, intentional nurture and retention ministry in your local church under the supervision of the local church clerk.
Elder Ramirez.
Yes.
So we have some of our churches who have assistant church clerks as well.
Yes.
And if we are adding responsibilities, would you mind speaking to mentoring others to come alongside us in this ministry?
Yes. Right now, I mean, and again, I don't know your churches, but if I was a pastor of one of your congregations, just based on the experience, my own testimony, my own experience of how I became into the church, what that new little church, and by the way, I'm talking about a little church. It was a church of about 45 members. Okay, so remember that it was not a mega church. It was a little church, but it was a tight little church, very active, very, loving. And I already shared with you all the ministers that I was invited to become involved. Right now, if I was a pastor of one of your congregations, and if the clerk came to me and said, Pastor, I'm excited about this possibility. We just had this orientation, and our own records show here that we're losing members. I don't know where Sister Jones is or Brother Thompson is. They were baptized 2 years ago. They're no longer here, whatever. What if we start a nurture and retention ministry? I'll be happy to oversee that ministry. I got some tools, I got some ideas, et cetera, et cetera. I would be so thrilled to hear that from my local church clerk. I would be thrilled at saying, what can we do? Let's talk about it. Let's create this nurture and retention ministry in our church. By the way, you're saying you're going to do A, B, C, D, and E. You're going to need help. I would be the first one and suggesting, it could be the clerk's suggestion as well. You need help. You need assistance. There must be somebody out there. If there's some young people, a young lady, a young man, that knows technology a little more than we do, perfect person to mentor, to train, to invite, and let's be creative. If I approach a young person in your congregation, if I'm the pastor of your church, I'm going to approach him intentionally from an aspect of technology. I'm going to say, you know what? I understand that young people, you guys love technology, you love social media, you love all the kinds of things. We would love to use your skills in helping us do something wonderful for our church. Sister Mary, who is our clerk, is needing someone that can work with the computer, that can work with e-Adventists, that can enter information, create data, and do stuff. And would you be interested in helping Sister Mary? So yes, inviting someone, finding someone, mentoring someone, orienting, training someone. Those are all pieces that can go a long ways with the finding someone to assist the church clerk. And this mentoring can come from either the conference clerk in your conference. If the conference clerk needs help, I'm sure he or she will rely on the executive secretary of your conference, Elder Brad. If he needs help or needs support, he will reach out to some of us who are happy to facilitate and to lend our support as well for training, orientation meetings such as this, so that people can be equipped to be able to do ministry. So yes, Pastor, yes, we would encourage that mentoring, the inviting, that asking for help, someone that can come along so that the ministry of the church clerk cannot be as heavy if something like this was to be implemented in your local church. So I'm about to close my presentation. Let me just start to summarize. Retention of all believers, I believe, starts with the ministry of all believers. So again, involving people in the ministry of ministries of the church is the right thing. We must get every baptized member involved in a ministry in the church. If we don't have a ministry, start a ministry. Like a choir, like as it was my story. We didn't have a choir, but the pastor felt, we'll create a ministry, get people involved, and we took off from there. Other needs that the church has, because the ministries of the church belongs to everybody. I'm going to say something, and I hope no one misunderstands me, but sometimes the process of nominating committee that we have in the local church can be a blessing, but at the same time can be our worst enemy, because sometimes we nominate certain people for certain ministries, and once we fulfill those ministries, then the rest of the church members are left with nothing. And in other words, I have not seen a church go through nominating committee and at the end of the day, make sure that every member of the church is nominated to some ministry in the church. Sometimes it's not possible. That's why sometimes, we have to invite people to serve. Let the nominating committee, I guess, do the leadership roles, the director of this, director of that, assistant or so. But let's bring the other members into ministry. Let's invite them. You don't need a nominating committee to ask someone to join the choir, to be part of the choir, to help the conference clerk, if they're willing to be mentor and train, maybe just run it through our church board, and authorize, young Mary or young Jonathan, to be an assistant to the clerk. The clerk is the clerk. She is the nominated person. The other ones, again, they're mentoring people. They're people that are joining there, want to serve. Give people a piece of the pie. Let them serve, their church. And let's not make it too difficult for that to happen. So that's what I mean by the ministry of all believers. I think it's very important that we, as much as possible, get people involved in the church. I believe this is one of the major steps of nurturing and retention of all church members, including especially those newly baptized. So my responsibility this afternoon, I'm casting vision. Please take it as such. I'm casting vision. I'm saying, what if we do this or do that? It's not perfect at all. It doesn't mean that it has to be this way, but it gives some food for thought. Could we do it? Should we do it? And yes, I would say, yes, we can do it. Should we do it? I would venture and dare to say we should do it. Will the church clerk be open, willing? Would you be open and willing to be a part of this? This is something that will remain with you after this presentation for prayer, for meditation, for consultation. And Pastor Brad and all of you, will make decisions, at the appropriate time. So 2 final suggestions for your consideration as we're closing. So again, what if the local church clerk or clerks involved in nurture and retention were elected to serve on a 3 to 5 year term? I hope I'm not saying any heresy here. I respect the church manual, and I believe, we should follow as much as possible, everything in the church manual. But, sometimes we can stretch something for the only reason and purpose of mission. And so this is one of those, can we extend that rubber band, just stretch it a little bit? Can we bend that rule, that policy, that just bend, don't break it? Can we bend things for the sake of the mission of the church? So one of my suggestions, and again, this is mine, this is not a North American division because nothing has been voted at any level. This is, again, it's a vision, it's a what if, it's a dream of mine. What if a local church clerk in a church decides to implement this nurture and retention project? Well, guess what? You're going to need longer than 1 year to not only prepare yourself, train yourself, receive all the training, orientation, get everything in peace, the implementation part, the follow-up to see, okay, so for 1 year, we did all these things for the baptized members. Where are those baptized members a year after, perhaps pushing it, for 2 years? So I dare to suggest, what if local church clerks involved in nurture and retention were elected or allowed to serve, 3 to 5 years, so that this ministry can really take off. Again, please don't misunderstand me. This is not in the church manual. This is not against the church manual. This is for the sake of the mission of the church. Could a local church say, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. We were after something. We're all in favor of this. We understand why we're doing this. Let's move forward. Let's implement something with the blessing and the decision of the leadership of the local church. Again, that's food for thought that can be considered. What if the local church clerk? Here's another potentially troublesome suggestion. What if local church clerks that choose to become involved in nurture and retention were financially compensated for their specialized ministry? Again, please don't misunderstand me. This is my only vision, my only dream. If I was a pastor of a local church today, I would potentially seriously consider something like this, to close the door, the back door of my church, so that every baptized member would stay in the church. How would this look like? I have no idea. How much compensation? If I was a church pastor, would I recommend, suggest? Again, it all depends on budgets. All depends on funding. I know that lay leadership, you serve the church because you love the church. First, you love God, you love the church. Second, you love people. Third, and that's why you church. You don't get paid, you don't get compensated. You are volunteers serving God's church, and we commend you for that. And without the volunteers in the local churches, there would be no church. And if there's no church, there would be no conference. And if there's no conference, there would be no union, no NAD, no general conference. So what I just said with that, the local church is the most powerful entity or organization on this planet. You disappear, everything will fall. You become stronger at the local church level, we all become strong because of you. So if there's a church out there that chooses to implement this project, initiative, etc., there's that possibility. Could we potentially compensate those clerks who are going to have added responsibilities? Is a yes and no, because we are supposed to be doing some of that as a clerk. You're over membership, and because you're over membership, there should be those things that I suggest that you should pay attention to and make sure that no one leaves the church, etc. But again, we're emphasizing something and we're going to do it. Could we compensate someone financially? Again, that's a topic that if the North American division, if I am able to find some funding at the NAD level, and if there's a church or two churches out there that want to try this, we can talk and see the possibilities, maybe in collaboration with your local conference, to see if how much, for how long, etc., we could potentially compensate, just to find, to strengthen this pilot program, which again, we're not implementing it across the whole division or across every territory or across every conference or church. It's a what if there's any desire by one or two or three churches to say, you know what, we're tired of losing members. This makes sense. This has a possibilities, a potential. We would like to implement it. Then again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So, Pastor Brad, I think this is pretty much the end of my presentation. Disciple making is at the heart of the Great Commission. You know that. Nurture and retention, part of disciple making. And if you agree with me, then as a summary, disciple making is the heart of the Great Commission. We must do whatever we can to retain, to do retention of new believers. Since, it started with the ministry of all believers, we must do a better job in getting new baptized members involved in church ministry. The local church clerk could play an important role in nurture and retention of new believers. And then finally, the church must create an atmosphere for new believers to build long-lasting, I would probably change that slide to say long-lasting memories, friendships, and relationships as they become immersed and they stay in the church, God willing, until Jesus comes. Keeping accurate membership information, vital to the mission of the church. I will do my very best to answer any additional questions that you may have on this presentation. And so unless anybody needs me to go back to a slide, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can look at faces and attend to your questions. So I'm gonna do that. We can always come back if I need to share something. But Elder Brad, I will let you monitor, coordinate whatever hands or questions there may be. And
all right, great. So if you would help me by showing a hand, either a hand emoji, raise your hand, or raise your hand in person. I can just see on the screen, then I'll call on those who raise their hands in that order. Okay, and then if that's not good enough, just unmute and start talking.
Okay, I'm gonna start talking.
All right.
I'm Carla from Caribou. I couldn't write fast enough. So can he go back to the slide before his last slide and I'll just take a picture of it?
Okay, what was on that slide?
Oh, well, on the second slide, it started with a disciple making is at the heart of the Great Commission is the.
You know, let's do something. I'm going to, and by the way, Elder Brad, I updated my presentation a little bit. I'm going to send my presentation to your executive secretary, the entire slideshow, and he knows you, he knows your emails, he will be happy to send it to you, and that way you will have everything at your disposal.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
You're very
Okay,
welcome.
so there was a question in the chat. Feel free, if you prefer to put a question in the chat, perhaps you got a lot of noise around you, that's perfectly fine. Helen submitted a question. I wonder if you have thoughts concerning missing members. I certainly have thoughts, but our speaker has more expertise than I do. Elder Ramirez, what do you think about missing members?
Missing members means that you already have hopefully a list of membership within your church who you already know they are missing. They haven't been attending church for 1 year, 3, 5, maybe 20 years. Missing members is a tough one because you wonder, why are they missing? For what reason did they stop coming to church? And again, you're not going to get answers unless you find them. What to do with missing members? Obviously, the simplest thing is do nothing. Just keep those members there. 2, which I would encourage, start a campaign, start a ministry, no longer of nurturing or no longer on retention, but of reclaiming, which is another piece that I'm hoping I can put something together and make suggestions. Right now, I'm just gonna do it out of the top of my head, but reclaiming members can be addressed in 1 or 2 ways. Number 1, you got to create a ministry of reclaiming members, missing members. Sometime you may find out where they are, you may know where they are, and so that's going to require a visitation part of the ministry of reclaiming missing members, visitation piece to that. And I'm sure you know how to put that together. There are other ways of contacting missing members if you know where they are. And there's social media now today. There's email, if you know their phone numbers. If they're missing and you know how to reach them, by all means, reach them. If you don't know where they are and you want to, again, make an attempt of reclaiming some of these members, then you work with your union. In your particular instance is the Atlantic Union. The union can facilitate for you a section on the, what's your magazine, your union paper, Pastor?
The Gleaner.
The Gleaner, where you can buy church name, and again, it has to be done in a way that there's a process for this. But you ask the union to publish all the missing church members for your church. Don't do it as a conference. Start church by church if this is the intent. Let's say, for example, it's a
Leamington.
Yes, Leamington Church. Let's say that you want to do that. Well, this is the Leamington Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Northern New England Conference. Please help us. Let us know if you know the whereabouts of any of the following missing members, and you share that list, whether it's 15, 20, 30, whatever, and then give it 2 or 3 months to see if you get people contacting you, say, yes, so and so is a member of this church now, or they're attending this church, and you begin to track and find out where they are. Okay, this one is missing from our church, but we just found out that he or she is attending another Adventist church, and so try to find out what their wishes are. Do they want to transfer their membership? Once you find out where they are and you're able to communicate. So it's a painful process, but not impossible. But again, either you don't do anything or you do something, start something in an effort to try to reclaim as many as possible. And again, this could be a 1-year project for your church. For 2024, we're going to do the very best to reclaim our missing members. We're going to do A, B, C, and D. I just gave you 2 examples or 2 scenarios, but there's more things that we can that a local church can do. Then after the 1 year is done, then you decide as a board. We were able to reclaim by God's grace, 20, 30, 40, whatever, but the others, what do we do? Again, you can just keep them on your roster as missing, or you can begin to remove names if you, in consultation with your conference executive secretary. I'm going to say something here that I shouldn't say, but it's a reality. We don't remove members as much because numbers mean something, and we like numbers. We want to have the representation. When it comes to delegates for A, delegates for B, delegates for C. The delegation implementation is based on your numbers. How many members you have at a local church? Well, you have 100. Well, you're entitled to 1 delegate for this and an additional delegate for every addition. So no church wants to lose representation. I get that. And that's why we don't do well in removing members. But at the end of the day, those are just numbers here on earth. In heaven, there's going to be no missing numbers. There's going to be no missing members, or you're there or not there.
Mm-hmm.
You're there or you're not there. And so I wish sometime we would start practicing more like heaven, but I get it. So again, I'm not suggesting remove members. I am suggesting do a campaign, an aggressive campaign to see how many you can reclaim. And then after that, then you decide what you want to do with the remaining.
Thank you very much, Elder Ramirez. Do you mind if I add a few thoughts
Please.
on that?
Please.
Yeah, and then we're going to go to Diane. I've been a pastor as well, and I love working with the church clerks. It is really awesome as a pastor to have a church clerk who serves as a good right hand or left hand, however you want to look at it. And we work together to help connect to those who have been disconnected. And it's really an enjoyable ministry because we're talking about people. And I know there may be some special instances where you have some real, for lack of a better term, some really difficult people out there. I just talked to one of the church clerks this past week about a really, really difficult person they've been trying to reclaim. But most of the people, they're not difficult. And it is truly enjoyable. And I remember in my first church I pastored, the church clerk said, "Pastor, we don't know where these people are. We don't know who they are, some of them, and where they are. And so is it okay if I put these names in our local church bulletin and we ask people to help us locate them?" And that was way before Facebook. And I said, absolutely. And we want to reduce that number. We want to find these people. And we want to connect with them, as many as we can. And that was really enjoyable. I felt it's like kind of like a goal, like an ambition to connect with as many people as we possibly can, so that we know where they are. And at a minimum, we need to be, I say we as churches, local churches, we need to call people on the phone and say, "Hey, I know you're in Virginia, you don't live in Vermont anymore, let's say, but we're just calling everybody and having a brief prayer, wondering what your prayer requests are." Don't ask permission. "Can I pray with you?" Just say, "Hey, we're wondering what your prayer requests are. And would you mind if I pray on the phone with you?" Just going to take a couple minutes on the phone like that. And it's very enjoyable. And I see much fruit from simple phone calls like that. No matter if they're local or not local, we need to connect with those who are a part of our church because they're God's people. And also, some of you are already aware, I've mentioned to you about a missing member letter. I've shared in some of your churches about that. And that is a warm letter, a warm letter. Now, some of you may have heard of those letters that are sent out. "Hey, you want to transfer your membership? You want to drop your membership check here?" No. That is a cold letter. A warm letter to send to the disconnected members. And if you want that for your church, please contact me. If we get enough of you contacting me, we'll have Liz send it out to all of us. But missing member contact engagement is very rewarding ministry. And by the way, the missing member letter so far within the conference, those churches that have done that, there's about a 15% return rate. So in other words, about 15% of the letters that go out have people return to church just by receiving the letter, the warning letter by itself, before they've had a chance to follow up on the letter. So you think about 20 members, letters are sent out. That's 3 people coming back to church. That's our average so far, a small sampling, okay? So about 15% return. So if you send maybe 10 letters out, you may get a person or 2 that returns just by the letter itself. And before you ever drop somebody as missing in this conference, make sure you call Liz, our conference clerk, or call myself. This is 2023, and unless somebody has fallen off the face of the earth, they may be presumed dead or something. That's a different thing, okay? But we really need to search heaven and earth to find these people before we ever drop them as missing, okay? So don't do that unless you contact us, as Elder Ramirez was just saying. We want to find them. If you don't know how to maximize on social networking and union paper and things like this, that's okay. We'll come alongside you to help you, because it's too easy for people to say, I don't want any part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church lately these days. There are people sometimes that they call, they're frustrated about something, they're disheartened about something. And Liz has those calls, and sometimes she forwards them to me, has me call them. Those are difficult calls. We don't want that. It's hard enough to help someone make decisions for the Lord, for somebody just to say, okay, I'm out. No, we want to do everything we can to keep people connected to the Lord, because as they're connected to the body, they're connected to Him as well through the body. Anyway, I had to share that, Elder Ramirez, and appreciate all these wonderful clerks. And it is a joy as a pastor to work with clerks like you. And it is fun. It is rewarding ministry to reach these people that are disconnected. It is a really rewarding. So Diane, with that said, please share your question.
Well, okay, now I'm going to feel a little bad because of all the beautiful testimony you've had about people that you've reached. And I understand that thoroughly. I think Tricia put in a comment that she's glad we don't remove people because someone's been praying for them. And I believe that wholeheartedly too. However, we have people on our church books. I mean, I probably have close to 20 people on our church books who have not stepped inside of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in 40 years. They were forced to be baptized when they were teenagers, and they left the church then and have never been back, but their mom or their auntie still goes to church, and they somehow equate church membership with a place in heaven. And so they say, you don't remove my granddaughter, or don't remove my daughter from our church records, because, and I get that. But I also feel like that's being disingenuous, that these people are not living an Adventist lifestyle. I have several people on our church books who are living, with a partner without the benefits of marriage. We have people who have just indicated that they're not interested. And a lot of times, I mean, it's a terrible thing to welcome someone into your church and tell them, oh, and by the way, if you ever leave the church or don't want to be a Seventh-day Adventist anymore, you need to let us know. We never say that to people, but we know that happens, that people get excited, they come to church for a little bit, and then they leave, and they never darken our door for 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, we literally have people on our books who are, in their mid-60s and haven't been an Adventist since they were a teenager. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know if that's dishonoring God by letting those people stay on our church records just for the sake of numbers, as Pastor Ramirez says. I've raised this before. I've been church clerk now for almost 15 years and asked these questions, and they said, oh, no, just leave them on. And I just feel that somehow that's being dishonest.
Elder Ramirez, you want to share that, or you want me to respond? What do you think?
Let me just share my thoughts. I feel the the pain, the frustration, and the what are we to do question, in a situation. I would not worry one single bit about any perception from anybody. I don't, because again, ultimately, this is God's church, and I don't think anyone who is missing, anyone who is away from the church, is still a target for God. God, as long as they're still alive, there are possibilities to be reached for God, to be reconnected to God. So I would not give up. It's someone put on the chat, just continue to pray. Perhaps what I would do if I were in you guys' situation, I would start a prayer ministry for all those 40 people for 1 year. Let's call it, this is our miracle list. Okay, there's 40 people here who have not, and you share the story. Let's pray for them day and night for 1 year, and ask God to show us as a church, or whatever it means, how can we reach these people? How can those people be touched? Let God do the battle. Let God do the work. But you're doing yours by praying by name, praying for each one of them. Forget what they're doing, how sinful they're in or living. You pray for them and for a miracle in their lives. And anyway, that's the least thing you could do. Initiate that project of prayer ministry. Call it miracle list. You're asking God for a miracle in the life of those people, and let the Lord battle for them and see what happens in 1 year. Or don't do nothing. I guess that's the other option. Or do other potential things of reclaiming those missing people. But I would not just give up on them.
Yeah, I want to respond too, if you don't mind, and then we'll go to I'm guessing Vinny there. And so that is a real life situation there that you're bringing up, Diane. And so what I would say also is I really appreciate what Elder Ramirez said about praying for them consistently, going to war. Again, I love a challenge, and you got 20 people, you said, I believe that's right, Diane, about 20 people like that, give or take.
Or more. I haven't gone down the list for a while.
And so I would be so aggressively or so aggressive in a campaign to reach them that I say aggressive, I mean not like aggressive to the people, not harassing, but I'm saying so intentional.
No, I understand what you're saying, but several of these people don't even live here anymore. They live, in Florida and Virginia, and they're not even here for us to reach out to them anymore.
Yeah, well, like I said, you pick up the phone. There's a lot that we can do this day and age with technology. You can just pick up the phone, and I would ask those family members who love them more than we do, give me insight, help me. I want to go along with you. I want to help you help these folks recognize how much we love them. So in the prayer campaign and following up the prayer efforts, you send letters, you give phone calls, you text, you go on Facebook or whatever social media platform, you can contact them and let them know you're praying for them. What can we pray for you for? And you do everything you can. And then if by chance they get to the point where they're like, man, they've been calling me once every few weeks here, and I have to make a decision. Am I going to ignore them, which is frustrating for us, I know, or am I going to take this seriously, or am I going to be honest, if the case may be, and say, you know what, I am not a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. I haven't been for 10 years. Please take my name off. At that point, then that's a different situation. You don't want to encourage that. You want to do everything to prevent that. But if that happens, then you have to honor their request. But you want to do everything you can to prevent such a response. but you don't know unless you have a very intentional campaign. Again, you got 20 people. So I would be like, wow, all right, God's got some of these 20 that are going to come back to church. Let's see which ones. But a lot of times there are other reasons outside of people just choosing an immoral pathway on their own, that some have been encouraged and been discouraged by people even within the church. That happens sometimes as well. Anyway, so let's go to Vinny, who's our volunteer lay pastor in Salem Company. Please share, and then we'll go to Val.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, happy Sabbath. When I think it was my first or second year in the church, that the local church I was at, the pastor came with a list of names of people that had not been to church and pretty much lived locally, and something needed to be done with, visit them and talk with them. And we had that issue that some of them were members of a large family that was in the church. And when their names came up, it caused a split in the church. It caused a huge problem in the church. But we ended up visiting all of those members, and the majority all asked to have their names removed off the church books, which we respectfully agreed to. In 27 years, I lost track with pretty much all of them, but one has come back to the faith. He comes to visit Salem every so often. What the sister was saying earlier, these people that go away and were forced into baptism, and they don't live and according to what our faith is. Yes, we pray for them. Yes, we do whatever we can for them. But do we have to retain their names in the church books? Because we can always welcome them back through rebaptism. They can take profession of faith. All right. But we got to be honest, with what Elder Ramirez said earlier, it's a numbers thing. And I like statistics. Okay. I like statistics in almost everything. But shouldn't we be honest with ourselves and with the world and say, no, we actually have this many members in the church? I think it was David Trim a few years back. I read an article in one of the magazines. He was saying we're listing, at the time, I think it was 16 million members. In reality, we only have about 13 million because of people who have their names in two different churches. So something needs to be done, I don't know, as high as the general conference level, to see where we have double memberships. The churches need to see that. And what somebody said earlier, ask around, put it in the Gleaner, see if somebody's name is somewhere in another church. And to see, just to get our records straight too. Dropping a name off a church record doesn't mean they're lost forever. And we work with them. We go after. I was saying this in Sabbath school today. How much do we love people? Okay, so that we would lay down our lives for them. Go and seek them. Go see how you're doing. Try and work with them. Study with them. Bring them back to the Lord. But if we don't have the heart in us to do it, to really love, to say like Jesus loved. We were going over 1 Thessalonians chapter 3 today, and how Paul talked about the Thessalonians, how he longed, how he cared about their welfare. That he sent Timothy to see how they were doing. How much do we care for people to see how they're doing? When somebody doesn't show up to church for 1 or 2 weeks, do we really reach out to see where they're at? What's going on in their lives? Do we see a difference in people in the way they act in church if their faith isn't there? These are things that, as leaders in the church, we need to keep an eye out on, for the members. Going back 27 years ago, one person I know has come back. I hope they've all come back. I know others that have, because of it, left the faith, have totally joined into the world and don't want anything to do with the church anymore. but I was just a year in the church at the time and I didn't know how to handle it. You know, I was a church member and I'm like, okay, so what do we do?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, it is something that we have to balance. For me personally, I'll let Elder Ramirez kind of have the last word on that. And then Val, I'm not sure if you had a question or not. Yeah, I think if you're doing more harm than good by dropping people, then you ought to weigh that. There's some people who look at that very seriously, their family member being dropped. Is it really worth discouraging the active members you have by dropping somebody? If it doesn't really make a difference anyway, we're not worried about numbers here. We're worried about people. And I think, but if we are very intentional, I think that's really the part what we're saying here. If we're not praying, if we're not reaching out, like Vinny is saying here, and then we just want to drop people for non-attendance. By the way, that's against what the church manual says. You can't drop people for non-attendance. That's against even worldwide church policy. If we are very intentional, we're doing everything we can, and we've been actively doing that for a long time, and they say we don't want anything part of the church, drop the members, okay? But if we're not doing what we're not going after that lost sheep that Jesus talked about. If we're not going after that lost sheep, how can we in good conscience drop people? We need to go after the lost sheep. That's the ministry of Jesus. But at the same time, I like to I want to hear it from their lips. I am not a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. I don't know why you have me on the books, but the only way I'm going to hear that is if I'm very intentionally reaching out to them, trying to appeal their hearts. So I think that if we're doing that ministry, God will lead us and give us peace on that, and we won't have to go to those battles with those who are related to them in the church today. I think that should be fine if we're very intentionally doing that. Elder Ramirez, I'll let you speak to that, and then maybe we can close up pretty soon after Val have the last question.
Having this discussion only reminds me that I started by sharing with you two major challenges the Seventh-day Adventist Church faces, and I went straight to nurturing and retention. But I think I'm going to update my presentation at the beginning because actually we face three, and you are discussing the third one, reclaiming members. One thing is to try to retain and nurture the ones in currently, but what do we do with the ones that are missing? How do we reclaim them? So that's another major challenge that we all face. But again, it's not impossible. However, you know this very well. The local church, you have the ultimate decision on what you want to do. No parent organization, will in the NAD is never going to tell you what to do. Should never tell you what to do. We can give you options, ideas, suggestions, recommendations, but ultimately every local church needs to decide, how to nurture, how to retain, how to reclaim their members, considering all the ideas, suggestions, recommendations given. But you ultimately have to make those decisions to do this or not to do that. And but again, this is a ministry that requires a lot of prayer. But before you do anything, you got to engage and say, Lord, is this your will for our church, and move forward with whatever plans you make. So, but again, thank you for the questions and the feedback on this. It just highlights the fact that reclaiming missing members is another major challenge that we need to somehow begin to address, hopefully. From my end, if there's any other questions on the nurture and retention, again, the intent of this presentation was to give you an overview of an what if, of a possibility, of a dream, so a suggestion. And you all need to make decisions, pray about it, talk with your pastors, talk with your executive secretary, and see what God may be up to. And we're here to continue serving you, resourcing you, orienting you, and giving you whatever suggestions, ideas we can to make sure that you do the ministry that you're called to do. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your ministry again. I'll let Elder Colley, I guess, end with prayer or have the final word, but if there's anything else we can do, he knows how to reach me.
Yeah, Elder Ramirez, before you go, and Val, if you permit me, Elder Ramirez has shared, thank you, Val, has shared with us a possible pilot project that we could take on as a conference, as a team of church clerks. I know we only have a portion they're able to attend in person at this time, but the others will see this later. So I would like to hear from you about what you think about a pilot project for the Northern New England Conference to partner with the assistance of the North American Division, Elder Ramirez's leadership, with myself, with our conference clerk, dear Liz, and with you that are willing to try it. No one will be forced to do it, but what are your thoughts about trying a retention project? I see a thumbs up from Val to taking on like a pilot project for our conference, that our conference be the test conference in the NAD of all 59 conferences, to give this a go to see what type of impact this may have in helping with the retaining members, the newly baptized, the missing members, all of that. Well, what are your thoughts on that? While Elder Ramirez is here, if you have a particular question of how that looks, what that looks like, while he's here, he's the best man to answer that. Please reply, please help with that while he's here. What questions do you have? What are your thoughts? You say, yes, let's try this, or maybe that's too much for me to, please give some feedback while Elder Ramirez is here. And I apologize that the time we need to close here, but please very, very quickly, succinctly give us your thoughts, whether in chat or just share verbally, thumbs up, whatever. What are your thoughts?
Well, I just unmuted because I don't know how to do the hand thing or anything, but I did want to thank Elder Ramirez for, this was so encouraging to me, and it made me want to refocus and jump back in. I'm 100% in.
Okay, thank you. Patricia, anyone else?
Yes, when I look through this, I don't see that it's a terrible big burden for a church clerk to do this. I mean, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like an overwhelming thing to do.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
certainly am willing to try it. Okay,
and Diane is thumbs up. Okay, all right, Winnie, see that? Anyone, Cindy? All right. Okay.
One suggestion, Elder Brad, is you can still be a pilot, do a pilot program, but it could be that instead of launching this or attempting to launch this with every congregation in your territory, that perhaps you select 5, maybe no more than 10 churches representing different ethnicities or different I guess also territories or representations of within your church conference, and we can do that. We can still do that. Test it and see what happens in a year, 2 years, and go from there. Or if everyone wants to do it, what it's going to require, obviously, is first of all a decision from the local church clerk. It starts right there, and then the support from the pastor of the local church. And the elders, hopefully, because the elders are going to play a key role in some aspects. Then there's probably a training that needs to follow that for those participating church clerks. Again, maybe from a different perspective, just emphasizing again the different steps and addressing other potential challenges. You will need to decide when you want to start, because again, and you can start in a quarter, or in the middle of a year, or you can start at the beginning of a year, but you got to go from there. From that point moving forward, that's where you're going to monitor and implement whatever we decide or you decide for any newly baptized member in the church, and see if at the end of 1 year they're still in the church, what this project or plan has made in their lives or done in their lives. So you need data. You need some time to test the data, and then we need time to report it to other entities, other churches in your territory, and hopefully that would generate enthusiasm and for other churches to join at another time. And then before you know, you can have churches join one by one, and you got something major going on in your whole territory. But I would not mind if we start with a small group and focus, train those, support them, and go from there. But it's up to you and your administrative team.
Yeah, just to let you know that based upon the responses, I'm going to have a conversation with my fellow officers and administrative committee coming up maybe later this month, just to let you know. I'm 100% support of this, and I'm happy to see that this is something of interest. So Val, we're coming to you. When do you have a quick clarification on that? A quick comment on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Elder Ramirez gave a very good explanation about it. I don't think personally, I'm not sure what extra training it would take. I would be more interested in you, Brad, setting up a log and setting up, very much like you did the attendance for church and Sabbath school, that would give us something that we would have visually that we could write names down with, because it sounds like just really checking to make sure they're there. And then if someone is not in attendance, that there's a check off or who we are putting in position to visit. That's the way I don't think it's as extra training. I'm not sure what else I would get from that, from what you did such a great job, Elder Ramirez, that I would just like to see something more official to hand to us. I mean, I could make one myself, but give it to Brad to do that.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for that, Winnie. And if all of us was as sharp as you, then we would be strides ahead, right? That's good. That's good. All right, Val, go ahead before we let Elder Ramirez go. You're good. Okay, well, let's close with prayer. Thank you very much for all your ministry. And Elder Ramirez, our hearts are thankful to you, because you're after the lost sheep, and you want us to come along, or you want to come alongside us if we're willing. And thank you for this train that's helping us to do that.
Amen.
So let's pray.
Amen.
Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we thank you that you entrust us with this great ministry of souls to reach out to. And we know that that is a ministry for all believers, as Elder Ramirez was just sharing with us. Thank you so much for blessing us through his ministry today. Lord, I know that he recently moved within the last year to from Arizona to be there closer, right there, the NAD area. And I pray you continue to give him your favor and bless people through him and his ministry. Thank you for what you're doing in his life, and pray you would continue to expand a positive impact and outreach to many people across this division through his ministry and his initiatives he's taking. Lord, this is an initiative to touch and reach and reconnect with the disconnected. And I pray that it will be fruitful. You would guide us to know how to do it, how to implement it, and that we could do it well, and that there'll be people that are reconnected to you as a result. Lord, we're very thankful for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. God bless you all. Have a good rest of
Yeah.
your Sabbath.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Happy Sabbath.